In this video, Dr. Jordan Peterson explains the key things you need to consider to have a better life.
The fundamental problems of life are existential. It's what to do. The solutions to those problems are not arbitrary. The wisdom traditions of mankind and the profound psychological theories that we've collected over the last 200 years, they converge. You know, one of the things they say is, get your story straight. Another thing they say is, if you're avoiding something that you need to do in order to get to where you're going, quit avoiding it. Because the avoidance will cause you trouble. It'll weaken you, and it'll make the world into a more terrible place. And then the broader sociological, psychological studies, like the ones that were done by people like Solzhenitsyn, who, as you know, isn't generally utilized in a personality class, but he's sort of like a meta Viktor Frankl, as far as I'm concerned. You know, Solzhenitsyn lays out another problem with all of this, which is, well, if you don't do this, if you don't get your story straight, and you don't stop avoiding, well then, well, what's the consequence? And one consequence is, well, you're a miserable thing with a very low quality life, and so you're just going to be tortured by existence, and it's perfectly capable of torturing you beyond your endurance. And that sort of sucks for you. But the next step beyond that is, well, you become the sort of person who isn't really all that positively predisposed to existence. And once you're that sort of person, then anybody who comes along to offer you the opportunity to live inside something rigid and hurt anyone who comes near, you're going to jump on that. Partly because you're afraid, and they offer you security, and partly because you're resentful and bitter and full of hatred, and so you're just waiting for the bloody opportunity to take that out on someone, especially if you can act morally and superior while you're doing it. You know, and you think, well, that's basically what Hitler offered the Germans, and that's basically what Stalin offered the communists. It was an inversion of the order, and anybody who was pathologically resentful had the opportunity to be just as murderous as they wanted to be. And so, you know, the 20th century put towards us a whole variety of problems. One problem was the problem of meaning. You know, Nietzsche sort of announced that at the end of the 19th century. And then the 20th century was, well, what do we do about that? And a lot of it was nihilistic, and a lot of it was totalitarian. And both of those seem to be not so good. You know, and for me, especially in the universities, the nihilism hasn't ended. It's still infested most of the humanities. But the nihilism and the totalitarianism, they are not the only opportunities. They're not the only options. And you know, it is possible for people to pay attention to their lives in such a way that they straighten out. And if you straighten out, man, you get tough. And you get useful. And if you're tough and useful, then life isn't so horrible. Or even if it is, you can hack it. You know, because making life not horrible, you'll have limited success with that. But making yourself tough enough so that won't corrupt you, that's a possibility. And then the upside to that is, well, you're not going to be a totalitarian, and you're not going to be nihilistic, and you're not going to be like a primary danger to the structure of the social unit around you. And who knows? Maybe it's even better than that. You'll be good for you. That'd be good. You'd be good for your family. That'd be good. You'd be good for your community. That would be good. That's an equilibrated state from the Piagetian perspective, right? You're living so it works for you, it works for your family, it works for your community. God only knows, maybe it even works for the planet. I mean, that would be the hope. Well, that's a pretty good thing to aim at. And the other thing to think about in that regard is, life is hard enough, so you need an adventure. You need an adventure to justify it. Like, it has to be worth it. You know, and one real adventure is, see if you can get your act together. That's hard. And it's an adventure. And it's partly an adventure because if you make that your primary goal, say, to not avoid things, to tell the truth, to aim at the highest value, things start to happen to you. They're not things that you're manipulating the world to get. They're just doors that start to open. And God only knows how many doors will open to you if you do that. And that makes things extraordinarily interesting. And once things are extraordinarily interesting, the fact that life has its limitations and that it's full of suffering, you think, yeah, well, you know, all things considered, it's not such a bad bargain. And so to close, one of the things you might ask yourself is, if you're in a situation where your life isn't of sufficient quality, then you might ask yourself, are you doing absolutely everything you can to fix it? And then you might say, well, let's not draw any final conclusions about the utility of existence and its value until we're sure we've got our act together and are seeing things straight. And that's worth pursuing. That's what you should be learning in university. You know, because that's the proper path of a citizen. It's the proper path of someone who's attempting to put the world straight. And that's the best thing you can do. And it's not only because it's right. It's because what's right is actually what's best for you. So that's what I've learned from the stuff I've been teaching you.